So welcome everybody and good morning. Welcome to today's video podcast, part of the Property for Good Facebook group. If you're not already a member of the Property for Good group, perhaps you're watching this on YouTube at a later date, please search us up on Facebook. Our hope for the Property for Good group is that it becomes a meeting point and a location for people interested in the social sector and in particular the supported living space, and hopefully we can make some connections between people so all of us can sort of pull together to help have an impact on the people that are needing the support, and some of the most vulnerable in society. And I'm delighted today that we've got Amy Varle as our guest, and nice to see you again, Amy. We'll spend obviously the majority of the time talking about Amy and her story and what she's up to at the moment. But first of all, let me just give you a quick look at what we're going to cover today. I'm going to give you a quick update on Cornerstone Place, which is my social enterprise. Then I shall run a poll just to understand a little bit more about who we've got on the call this morning, and then obviously spend time with Amy, plus the Q&A, and talk about the next event. By the way, at any point, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat feature within Zoom, and we'll pick it up and we'll address those questions. So for those that don't know, Cornerstone Place is a social enterprise set up by myself and another chap called Richard Kennedy. And at the start of this year, we added 2 new directors, Mark Stokes, whose system we're using, which is why it's got that Equa Academy logo at the bottom. Mark Stokes and Nigel Green. And Cornerstone Place exists to support homelessness charities by providing them with fit for purpose accommodation. So we find the property, we fund it, we do the development work, and then we have a unique model whereby we call it our shared upsides model, whereby the charity benefits in the ownership of the property. And we're getting busier and busier. We've got 3 projects that are going through the motion at the moment. This one on the left here, these dark drawings, in fact, they've evolved a little bit since then. This is a project we've got down in Oxfordshire. Planning has gone in now. We've got funding agreed from our senior lender, and also we've just we put an application in for our mezzanine funding as well, which is through it's through a channel of funding which is only really available to social enterprises and charities, and it's a blend of grant and also a loan as well. So we're very excited about that. We've been told we should be able to get it. If we get it, I'll pull the covers off, so we'll let you know, but obviously top secret at the moment. The site in the middle is something that it's a national charity they're doing in London at the moment, and they've engaged with us to do some work identifying sites for them in Manchester. And we found a site, they've had a look at it, it looks pretty promising. I'm kind of crossing everything that they're keen to push forward, because that will provide support for young people, which I think is something close to Amy's heart. Sort of the kind of 16 to 25 age group in a supported living capacity. So fingers crossed with that one. And then finally, we have a project in Tameside, which is going through legals at the moment. It will be 12 units, and it's just going through the motion. You know what these things, they take their time, don't they? So it's very exciting. We've got some other potentials in the background as well. We're just trying to manage everything and keep things moving forward. So there, just a quick insight on Cornerstone Place. So now let me just quickly run our poll. Just kick this off, launch the poll. And the question is, how involved are you in the supported living sector currently? If you could just take a few seconds, please, just to let us know. All right, let me just end the poll now and share the results. And you can see, actually, the vast majority of people are interested, not yet started. And I would say that's actually quite interesting, considering yourself, Amy, and what you're doing with your social strategy group. And that's certainly something we can talk about in a second. Okay. Just close this off. And let's now talk to you, Amy. So I think you know, the arc of your life is quite amazing. You know, it's not hyperbole to the first sentence, from homeless to the House of Lords and to number 10 Downing Street, and you're the founder of the Social Strategy Group. I think you know, from where you've come from to where you are now is inspirational and also impressive, frankly. And I think the impact that you're shaping up and you're delivering is something that is so important for what's needed in, particularly in the sort of Manchester area that you're operating in currently. But obviously you have plans to move national as well. So I'm really keen to share your story. So let me just close this off. And now hopefully I've closed the screen off. Is that right? I'm just checking. Yeah. Okay. Great. Lovely. Amy, welcome.
Thank you. A little bit overwhelmed with the just amazing, lovely, warm welcome that I've had into your community and also onto the webinar today. So thank you. I always find it a bit overwhelming when people introduce me like that, because to me it's just my life, it's just normal, it's just my job, you know. So I'm just doing my bit. So you know, we're all doing our bit, aren't we? So.
We are all doing our bit. We are all doing our bit. So just for the benefit of those that maybe don't know, if you wouldn't mind, please just talk us through, you know, the homeless to House of Lords bit, that piece. If you could just talk through a bit of your background, and then we can dig into what you're doing now.
Yeah, of course. And I think people always find this bit really interesting about me, that when they find out that I actually have personal experience of homelessness myself, because I don't think I probably present myself as somebody who looks as they have had experience of homelessness. So people, you know, their ears prick up straight away. And the fact that I'm quite open about that as well, because I think that it's important to break those barriers down, that, you know, if you're going to be potentially looking at working in this sector and housing people who have these types of challenges, like being homeless or having mental health issues, you may have some preconceived ideas of the type of people that you maybe will, you know, inadvertently end up supporting. And, you know, that can not always be quite the case, as you can see with me. You know, people can fall on hard times and hard circumstances, and particularly when they're young. I know, you mentioned about doing a project that's focused on supporting young people with Cornerstone Place, and my ears pricked up because that's where I started a project like that. Yeah. And I mean, from there, I was homeless as a teen. Thankfully, I didn't rough sleep. So I've never spent any time any time on the streets. But following the breakdown of my parental relationship, I ended up going into supported accommodation for about 10 months, and I had some very positive intervention. I dropped out of school at 15, complete tearaway. I was a total rebel. My poor mum, I still feel sorry for her today, what she had to put up with me. But I was, one of those feisty, opinionated, strong-willed teenagers who had a few issues, and I went off the rails a little bit, and that happens. And thankfully, I had some really strong intervention, and I had a really amazing solution put around me, and lots of different acts. I mean, I lived in a really nice, modernized, little apartment. I had support on site, security there. I did lots of training courses and bits and bats. So I progressed from that stage quite quickly and quite easily, and I didn't think so at the time, but I actually had quite a positive experience of homelessness on reflection. And I quite naturally gravitated from that into a career in social housing. It was just where I'd started and what I knew. So I ended up getting a job in a private company doing support work for people with mental health challenges who were coming from psychiatric hospital. And I was working 70-hour weeks and 4 sleeps, £2.20 an hour. Really paid my.
And how old were you then?
I was 17, so okay. 17 and 19. I spent a couple of years in that role. Just totally, felt I was in my comfort zone. I absolutely loved it. I was probably a little bit young in hindsight. I was dealing with some really hardcore, mental psychiatric breakdowns and issues, and had a knife up against me on numerous occasions. I was chased out of properties a couple of times. Real, baptism of fire of working in this sector. So I went from there at 19 into my local authority, Bury Council, and I spent about 8 years working there. variety of roles working. I managed homeless housing stuff. I managed learning disability stuff, UKBA, asylum seeker contract, drug and alcohol. So I got quite a broad experience of managing property that housed people with social issues and with particular needs. And it was actually off the back of the last recession where I became self-employed in this sector about 2010. I was dealing with all the cuts and repercussions in the local authority, and we were working to a staff team that was probably half of what we were used to. We had no property stock, but we had just queues of people in our office every day who needed housing advice, who needed, they were splitting with partners, they'd lost jobs, everybody seemed to be in crisis, and we seemed to have less and less resources to deal with that every single day. And so at the same time, I was driving home from work and I was seeing to let. And I'm thinking, why is nobody matching this up?
There's a disconnect. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, to me, it was just common sense. There's housing available, there's people that need it. How can we figure out the bit in the middle? So I did a ton of research. I'm a really kind of inquisitive mind. So if I get my head into something, that's me. I'm on my laptop, till 4 a.m, for the next year, like a little squirrel. So I did tons of research and I found, yes, there's a real gap in the market for somebody who can bridge the gap between the public and the private sector when it comes to housing. Okay. So I set People's Property Shop up in 2012, my first failed business in this sector. I've had a few, I'm sure there'll be a few more. But I came in thinking quite naively that I could go in and be almost like a letting agent that would open the doors to social tenants and be accepting to people on benefits. So that's what I did. And I went out leafleting in Manchester city centre and, just offering services to homeless people, and we'd sit on the streets with them and talk through their needs. And at the same time, I was going property networking, so I was going around all the Manchester property networking events. There was loads back then. And I was giving advice to landlords and helping them with, tenants who were kicking off and not speaking to them, and benefit claims that had gone wrong and rent arrears. And I quickly found that because I was, probably one of the only people in the sector that was doing this, I'd go to these events and landlords would go, oh my God, there's a lady over there and she's from the council and she helps.
Right.
You can understand
where
I started to get, quite busy. So
okay.
I ended up securing a portfolio of property, and we did on a rent-to-rent basis, and a landlord kind of took a chance with me, and we ended up with a stock of about 20 kind of tired HMOs that we decided to, let's do a research project, let's go and offer these to homeless people in Manchester, and let's see how this actually works in practice, and let's figure this out. And that's what we did. So
where are we here? Are we at like sort of 2000?
Yeah, so
14,
I had
14 or?
I had the idea to set my business up in probably about 2010. I left my council role September 2011, and then I spent about a year or so shitting myself and going, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah.
and being too scared to do anything and take it forward. And then I took the leap. I think I started my business in 2012, and it was about between 2012 and 2013 that this was going on. And 2013 was when we started the pilot scheme, as I called it, which was where, as I say, I accessed availability of this property stock, and it was all ex-student stuff, so it was in places like Fallowfield and Withington. It was all city centre really type stuff.
Decent enough locations.
So the homeless people, they were thrilled with that.
Yeah, I'm sure
so I was really looking, the poor landlord, we actually went riot on this property portfolio for a couple of years. We had we literally just non-discriminatory, because I thought if I put barriers up against people now, because I wanted to take the results of this, of what happened to the local authority, to Manchester Council. So I thought I can't be picky and choosy over who's going in the properties, because then the research is not going to be credible. So we literally just kind of opened the doors to all. And I was going onto the streets of Manchester and like sitting with people on the floor, having conversations with them, buying a brew. And if I got a gut feeling that, yeah, this person's going to be somebody that's going to work with me, that's going to engage with me, I literally would personally guarantee that tenant myself for the landlord. So I became like the guarantor of like 100 homeless people. And
that's pretty high stakes stuff, that is.
Yeah, because I was saying to the landlords, don't take a chance on them. I know this person to you just looks completely ridiculous to put in a 6-month AST. However, I'm asking you to take a chance on me. I'm going to take responsibility for them. I'm going to do the benefit claims. I'm going to check up with the council. I'll, bob down and support them with what they need. And that's what I did. And for a good 2 years, I'm telling you, this project ruled my life. I literally had like 100
not surprised.
kids.
Okay.
It was nuts, Dave.
So I mean, what's interesting there is, and this is as little as I know you, Amy, but I get a pretty good sense of it. There are always consistent themes when I have conversations with you. That it wasn't just a fact of, look, Mr. Landlord or Mrs. Landlord, I'll take your properties and I'll get housing benefit and I'll just make some money in the middle. That wasn't.
I didn't make any money out of it.
Well, this is the thing. This for you was a research project. It was a project to see how you could take those findings and say, listen, there's a disconnect, and this is actually what we need to do. And by the way, we've got 100 people off the streets, and so on and so forth. And that, I think that's a critical difference, and that's actually why you've ended up doing what you've ended up doing. I would argue as well, because it's not about it's not about, like you say, making any money out of it. There's more to it. There's the underlying social purpose that you're trying to address and deal with.
Absolutely. And I came into this as I didn't have a commercial brain or a commercial bone in my body. I'd had nothing to do with business to this point. I'd worked in local authority settings or in, private care company. So when I came into, doing this in a business sense, I had no clue that, I needed to actually make money out of this to make it work.
Right.
And I, so naive to that. And because I came in with such a here I am to save the world, ethos, landlords just kind of took the mickey out of me the whole way through, because they were like, oh, Amy's being charitable, so that's great. So we'll help her. But they didn't think they needed to pay me as part of the process. And I got myself in, over the course of a few years, I actually got myself into up to 60 grand's worth of debt, which thank God I've managed to pay down now in the last few years. But yeah, for me, for a long time, I was too focused on the charitable side of things. I had no care of making money. I just wanted to save the world and change the world at no cost, at any cost. And I had to change that along the way, as you can imagine. Otherwise, I would have been bankrupt at one point.
Sure. So from that, is that what led you on to the Churchill Trust?
Yeah, so my thought with the research project was, I'm always looking at the bigger picture. So for me, I could have made good money straight away, keeping with my letting agency idea and actually just becoming an agent and doing it that way. But it didn't float my boat. It didn't make my heart sing. I wanted to do something that, that really spoke to me. And I knew, as I say, I could make money pretty much straight away if I did the letting agency side or I became a consultant. But that I was looking at the bigger picture, and I thought, what, the evidence and the data that I collect from this scheme, if I can invest into this now, and I took out business loans to do so, if I can invest into this now, the evidence that comes off the back of this is going to be priceless. Nobody else at this point in time was even thinking about housing rough sleepers off the streets. This is 2013. We didn't even start talking about housing first as a strategy until probably 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017 was when it really came through. 2018 was when it came out with my paper. So I was laughed out of meetings in terms of suggesting housing as a solution to homelessness. But I was convinced that if I did enough if I gathered enough evidence, surely somebody would pay me at the end of this, or give me a grant, or hire me, or something where I could make an impact. So that was my train of thought. And when I got to the end of the project, so we spent, as I say, about a couple of years. I housed a really wide range of people over that project. And actually what I'll do is, after this webinar, I've got about 7 hours worth of video content. So when you asked in your poll about people, that there was a big chunk of people that are just very interested in getting into this sector, and they're not actually active in the sector at the moment. I've got about 7 hours worth of old coaching video content, which goes through the whole of the pilot scheme in every bit of detail of how we set that up, how we found the properties, how we convinced the council, how we got the tenants, how we checked the tenant, how the finances worked, everything. So I put that in, and it's all on YouTube. I put it out there when COVID came, just in case anybody could, take some value from it. Right. So I'll share that with the group, and that is a great place for anybody to start. Like I say, every bit of my brain from that pilot scheme period is on those videos. So you can find out all the dramas that we had, like, we had we had one tenant put all the windows through of all the properties. We had a restraining order against one tenant. We had one tenant that emptied the entire street's bins into the communal lounge, the black bins, and we had to, I can't even tell you. So yeah, that's all on those videos.
But that kind of underpins the one key element of this supported living area, because too many people, it feels a little bit like it's a bit of a shiny penny at the moment, in that a lot of people are trying to do something in this sector, and a large number of people are doing it for the right reasons. They want to help people, and they want to build a sustainable business, and that's absolutely spot on. There are also people that maybe are just looking at it just from a purely financial basis, but these are challenging tenants to work with. And that's why, from our point of view with Cornerstone Place, we're just saying we're property people, and the delivery of services needs to be done by a charity. Yeah. And Sian, who's here as well, who was obviously on she was on our last webinar alongside Andy from Healthier Heroes. Sian is coming forward as the property expert, and Andy Powell is providing the services, and that's critical, isn't it? Because you've got to have that balance. You've got to have that balance.
It's the perfect way to work, and you've basically just hit upon, without realizing it, bins in the community. I'm just looking at the message there. I'm making it scary. Bins in the communal room. The thing is, that was when I started. That's when I was clueless, and I came in like a bull in a china shop, going, let's house every Tom, Dick, and Harry off the streets of Manchester. I literally were taking people out of cardboard boxes. These people had no history. They had no paperwork, no documents, no references, no credit. I was literally just taking a chance on a gut feeling, and yet it came back and it bit me hard. I'm not going to lie to you. I had many, many sleepless nights.
I bet you did.
This is why I did this, because I didn't want other people to experience. I wanted to make it easier for other people, because when landlords and property providers experience these types of issues, the tenant's experiencing them too, and the tenant ultimately will end up back on the streets if the solution breaks down. So what I was amazed when I came out of my council job. Everything I knew from working within the local authority, everything I did, down to if I needed to empty a bin, there's a procedure that would tell me how to empty that bin. If I needed to order new stationery, there's a procedure to tell me how to order that stationery. So when I came out of my council job, as I say, no commercial experience, fresh from, public sector, basically a chill out lifestyle working there, having coffees every day and, just standing by the coffee machine and gossiping. So I came from that into the, really,
one extreme to the other.
Yeah, really fast-paced commercial world, and I didn't have the acumen and experience to know what was doing. So I quite naively thought there was this thing called the LHA strategy. At the moment, it's all supported accommodation. That's what everybody wants to do. Back then, it was the LHA strategy, and people were starting to come wise to the fact that you could actually make good money by renting your property out to tenants who were on benefits. And if you split your property up and did it in an HMO fashion, you could make really good money from doing that. And I'm talking really good money. So when I came in to start doing this, I thought quite naively, there was an LHA strategy. I actually thought it was an actual document, and I looked everywhere trying to find where's the strategy, where's the instructions. And it became evident that there was no strategy, there was no helpline, there was no website, there was no support. If you were providing property to tenants on benefits, you had the UK Gov website and you had your local council website. That was about it. And I thought it was nuts that people are investing hundreds of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds, and they're doing it blind without any procedural guidance, any best practice. So this is why I set about to make my own, because I thought I needed it for myself. I needed to know, that's how I work. I need to know some kind of like order or some instructions, or, you know, I'm quite like fanatical like that. So I set about to create my own kind of, let's say, procedural framework for how to operate within this sector. And when we had problems like tenants emptying the bins all out throughout the living room, for me that was another situation. I'm a very solution focused person, so when I have a problem, I don't tend to look at the problem. I look at how do we fix this, and how do we create a solution, and how do we innovate out of it. So for me, when we had those problems, it enabled us to understand how to predict them and prevent them for other landlords and for other providers. So that's why I started to, as I say, create this framework, which was always my intention to share this widely to help and support other practitioners. And as I say, if you're starting at that basic level, go and have a look at those videos on YouTube, and they will walk you through all of that pilot scheme and all of the ups, downs, left, rights, and the procedural framework that you need to make that right.
So did those activities lead you to heading off to the US? Because I want to talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, so I was really lucky actually that, so when I was, as I say, came from the council, want to set up a new service, I found that there was literally nobody in the UK doing what I was doing. Everybody was working on a continuum of care model for homelessness, which means you, in a nutshell, a person has to jump through a load of hoops in sync before they get granted a house at the end. You know, they have to engage with this service, that service, you know, start coming off drugs, da, 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 da. But if they're doing that all on the streets, for me, I didn't see how they could do all of those things and then, oh, here you go, here's your golden cherry at the end, you can have your house keys now. I thought, well, why don't we give them the house at the beginning and then help them to support them, you know, support their issues through there. To me, it was just common sense, but nobody else in the UK was doing this, and people were quite against it, I'll be honest. So I started looking further afield. What are they doing other places in the world? And I came across quite early on some excellence in innovation in America, in terms of they were working on a strategy the same as me, but they were calling it housing first, whereas I was just calling it common sense. So they put a proper name against this strategy, and I was absolutely just, you know, completely and utterly buzzing when I came across these places. I found a place called Breaking Ground in New York, which is phenomenal, probably one of the best providers in the world in terms of homelessness resolution. What they did, they bought a building in Times Square. It was a rundown building. They renovated it, and they had their tenants, their future tenants, help them to renovate it too. And, you know, it provided work for people and opportunities and gave them real ownership of the property. It restored an old, beautiful property back to life in Times Square. This was back in the 80s or 90s. And
it's worth a fortune now, is it?
Yeah, they oh, it's stunning, and they renovated, but it's still operational, and they renovated the ballroom in there, so they put like some social enterprise element in there, so they could hire out the space of the ballroom, host their own events. They even had a Ben and Jerry's in there underground, so they had like a shop that people could work in and stuff. Amazing place, best practice. And they share a lot too, like in the same fashion that I do. They have toolkits, and they, you know, they want you know, to encourage other providers to work in the same sense that they are. But they'd hosted a research project, as I say, back in the 80s, 90s. I forget my dates now, it's only that long since I've gone through all this stuff, but they did the first kind of housing first research project. So in the same way I'd done this pilot scheme in Manchester, they'd done a bit more, you know, grand and official and, you know, all bells and whistles funded research project in the same capacity in the 80s and 90s. And they'd done this with really entrenched rough sleepers, people who had like really severe mental health issues, really severe addiction issues. And they put them into housing. Like, it was radical for like the time. Like, I think it was like 1992. I'd have to check, but it was radical for the time. And they put, as I say, they conducted this research project where they housed, placed people into immediate housing and gave them support to work through their issues. Within a year following the project launching, they had something like 88% of people still in their properties, come off drugs, doing well. Mind-blowing, absolutely phenomenal. So this is when I came across, you know, these types of projects, and I started taking bits from them. As I say, nothing for me to learn from in the UK, so I started learning from this international best practice. And the more I discovered, the more I loved. I found a place in San Francisco called Project Homeless Connect, which is an organization which, San Francisco is a really spread out place. So if you're homeless, you might need to literally go 20 miles here to get a bus ticket, and 20 miles here to go to the council office, and then another 10 miles in this direction to get your, you know, your glasses fixed. So Project Homeless Connect brought the public, private, third, voluntary sectors all under one roof through they do these massive road shows where if you're homeless, you go there one day, literally you have your hair cut, you have your teeth done, you have your glasses done, you have your toenails cut, your benefits, you get your housing, your bus, everything. And I just thought, we weren't working together. And for me, it's all about collaboration and working together. So things like this just lit me up inside. And I was really fortunate because I didn't have any money. As I said, I was getting myself into massive debt doing all of this. So what I was doing was using the internet and the free resource tool I had there to promote what I was doing. So thankfully, a lot of people were getting, you know, interested in this and was kind of following me along the way. And somebody contacted me and said, have you heard of this opportunity? It's a travelling fellowship with the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust. And the beauty with working with the Churchill Trust is it's a design your own project type of experience. So they look for change makers, for trailblazers, for, you know, passionate social entrepreneurs who want to, you know, make a massive difference in society and perhaps have the potential to do so. And they fund you to go out and become that person and be, you know, and explore the world and to look at best practice and to look at innovation. And I designed my own project. I went across America. So I started half on the East Coast, half on the West Coast. I went to places like Project Homeless Connect, which I've mentioned, and Breaking Ground. Breaking Ground, actually a funny story attached to that one, because they stopped there. They are literally, as I say, one of the biggest names in homelessness resolution in the world. So I'd had some emails back and forward before I went to New York, and then I got to New York and they stopped replying to my emails weeks before. So I was really down on it, and I was like, this is my dream to go here. So in the end, I managed to find out the address on the internet of their corporate office in Manhattan. And then one day I just went there. I went to the downstairs, and the doorman said, and he said, where are you going? I said, oh, I'm going to Breaking Ground. And he said, oh, do you know who you're seeing? And I just made up a name. I said, oh yeah, I'm seeing such and such buddy. So he let me in. So I go up this elevator to like 300 floors up or something. Opens up, there's this literally like pristine white, everything white, like the super high tech, like complete Manhattan like foyer, black, white, Anyway, this woman comes running out and what's he doing here? How have you got in here? And I said, oh, hi, my name's Amy. I've come from England. We were chatting via email, but no one's replied to me. It's been really interesting coming to see your service. She looks at me. She said, Amy, she said, let me tell you, we get hundreds of emails every single day from people who are interested in what we're doing. She said, we put all of our guidance on our website. We have toolkits, we have, procedures and tutorials, so that we avoid this type of situation of people wanting to come to our office and talk to us.
And here's you hot off a flight from Manchester. Yeah.
So she says, however, she said, we do not do this. She said, we absolutely do not let people in like this. This is so unorthodox. I can't even tell you. And then she said, however, I really admire your tenacity here. I'm going to see what you can do.
Good work.
So anyway, they called me up. I went away. They actually called me up later that day, and she said, you've really tickled us in the office. You really give us something to smile about. She said the vice president will see you for an hour tomorrow.
Wow.
So I got to go and have a meeting with the vice president. I went through all my business plan, and he gave me tips and guidance. It was incredible. So just goes to show, if you want something enough, go after it. And
that's quite an extreme way of doing it, of course. I love it. No, it's fantastic. So you spent quite a bit of time in LA as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so I went to, that was actually a random one, because I'd been booked to go to San Francisco and Silicon Valley, where Silicon Valley, I saw like the jungle camps and a lot of what was going on the ground. I saw tiny homes there. I went to a conference with the California government there with innovation in housing and homelessness stuff. And then I went over to San Francisco, saw a Project Homeless Connect, and a couple of, a Dish was another, like a housing first project delivering innovation in supported housing, which was fantastic. And then it was weird because, as I say, I was doing a huge amount of promo online, because it was all I had was, the only free way was social media. So I picked up a bit of following along the way, and somebody tweeted me. I remember actually I was in an Uber in San Francisco, and my social media sponsor had come over. She'd flown over to meet me in America. She was with me at this point just for a week or two. And I got a tweet from somebody, and they said, "Oh, Amy, you must go to LA and see such and such things." So I just thought, you know what? Why not? So I got invited to see Skid Row, and I thought, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I changed my plans, got on a bus, traveled up to Los Angeles, and I spent it was so fortunate that I did, because as I say, I got to go to Skid Row, which was just once in a lifetime experience, just mind blowing.
Just tell us a bit more about that then, because just in terms of what your expectation was and what the reality was.
Yeah, well, I thought quite naively Skid Row was a row. And then a lot of people have told me, like, you need to be really prepared for going to America. This is not homelessness as you're used to in the UK. And I thought, oh no, I'm really hardened to it. I spend loads of time on the streets. I'm really, comfortable around people who are off the face on heroin. No problem. You go to America, and it cannot be put into words how homelessness actually is there. Homelessness here is Disneyland compared to what they're dealing with in America. Seriously, it is, because say how we've experienced it in the COVID crisis here, with no access to public restrooms, no access to, showering facilities, toilets. In America, they don't have the same empathy that we have for the homeless. So there's not really many outreach groups or food, or, people they live feral there. The problem is 100 times bigger than you could ever imagine. It's mind blowing.
I watched a film just recently, actually. It's on Amazon Prime, and I'm trying to remember, I think it's called Skid Row Marathon, and it's about it's a judge actually who, his day job is putting people away for years at a time, but also he is a runner, and he's quite active in the church, and I think there's a church mission which houses people, but it's like a dormitory type of place. And the film charts the progress of people who've never run before, who start running and they end up doing a marathon. And I think the first marathon is in Ghana or somewhere like that, and then the next one is in where's the next one? Rome. It's in Rome, and it's brilliant. But you get a bit of a visual and a bit of an insight into the homelessness challenge in LA, and there are 57,000 people homeless. It's just mind blowing, and that's proper street homelessness. That's not just sofa surfing homelessness.
So this is what I thought. So when I went to Skid Row, I thought a row, I thought it was a big row. I thought it was a massive street, but it's not. It's like an 11-mile radius where it's like a third world country. I was staying on Hollywood Boulevard, so I've driven from like all this like caricature of wackiness and opulence and in your face, and you drive from that and just down the road, it's like you literally end up in a third world country. And when you said about over 50,000 people on the streets, that's no exaggeration. You've literally got, say, in Skid Row when I went, I think the count was about 15,000 people. If you can actually imagine what it's like to have 15,000 like unwashed, drug addicted, mentally disturbed, like a lot of the homeless people in America, it blew my mind the drugs they're taking. I mean, I worked with, like, I did the Gary Neville the stock exchange project, so I actually was living with the homeless in Manchester for a period as part of one of my jobs, where people were taking spice and meth and heroin, and sat next to them. So I'm not averse to people who have substance abuse issues, and I've been around a lot of people who have been under the influence of lots of drugs. America is on another level. People are taking some weird concoctions of drugs there, and they are, they're in the streets, and it's like they've lost their minds. It's actually quite scary. Say, like in America, I didn't feel comfortable just to go and talk to homeless people in America on my own, because we had knives pulled out on us at one point in San Francisco when I was with my social media sponsor. We got involved in a fracas. Somebody's drugs got stolen and knives came out and they were all fighting. My social media sponsor ran and I couldn't find her for a few hours. It was chaos. So it's not I actually came back from America. My doctor diagnosed me with a mild form of post-traumatic stress syndrome.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
I was going there, and like with Skid Row, rapes, murders, drugs, gangs, I can't tell you, and it's all there in your face, but there's women and kids in the middle of this. Kids are living there. It's like, we don't see that. We don't see kids on our streets in the UK. Kids are on the streets there, and they're, it's really, really grim. And when I came away, I had this real sense of like, oh my God, all those people are going to die, and what can I do about it? And I can't, in England, if I walk past a homeless person, I can generally help them in some way, and I do that a lot. Whereas in America, I felt like I had nothing to offer them, and that was very difficult for me on a personal level, that I was just there to observe. I didn't have a solution to offer. And as I say, when I came home, Silicon Valley, the camps that I visited, lost 123 people in 6 months. So that gives you some idea of the scale we're talking about there. And I say, it messed with my head a little bit, and I had to just put my energies into, okay, let's create solutions. Let's put everything into solutions here.
And that's the key piece, isn't it? So you've got all of this experience in your life behind you now by this stage, and I think we're about 2016 now, something like that, aren't we?
Yeah, so I did my fellowship in 2016, and then it took me a year or two to actually write it all up. So everything I did in the UK and everything I did in America all became my white paper, which is one of the proudest achievements of my life, because if you was listening at the beginning, you heard that I didn't sit my GCSEs. I was a high school dropout. So I actually wrote a real white paper that was, is there and exists.
But it's not one that just got put on the shelf either, is it? This is what led you down to the seat of government.
Yeah, and this is, for me, it's a very much a working document. And, I had an obligation with my church of fellowship to produce a report at the end of it. And when I do something, I like to do it properly. So most people with the church of fellowship, I think, submit a 10-page summary of their travels. I spent 2 years writing a white paper because not many people do study homelessness as a topic with the Churchill Trust to begin with. I'm the only person who is contributing to the COVID-19 projects that they're currently facilitating at the moment. So they don't have many social entrepreneurs who are really pushing for solutions in homelessness. So I wanted to, as I say, I was the only person, I think, in my year that was doing something to do with homelessness, and I wanted to do something that would have an impact. So my report was a summary of everything from the UK, all my pilot scheme stuff, everything I learned in the US, and then it was what's the findings and the outcome of that. And then furthermore, how can we take this forward now, and what are some conceptual ideas? And if you want to save yourself from reading 100 pages of that white paper, I'll summarize it for you. Housing, support, and then the thing that needs to bring it all together. You know, the housing side, as you point the nail on the head, housing and support needs to be separate. You can't be I've met a lot, and I've never met somebody who can specialize in the two. You are either a housing specialist or you're a support specialist. Don't be both. Nobody.
That's certainly our experience. You know, we talk to charities, and you know, sometimes we talk to trustees within charities, and the trustees say, well, we can buy the property, but it's not just as simple as that. And it's just the same as, you know, I would never dream of thinking that I have the skills to look after a house full of people with complex needs. It's just not my background. And so you need that blend, don't you? You need the you know, you can't be all things to all people. So you just have to pick your specialist area and follow that.
Absolutely. And I think this is why I'm so passionate about collaborative working, because when I came back from a fellowship and started to go through my findings, I kind of had two choices. I can take this now and I can go away and build myself a nice little business where, you know, I've got a little portfolio of property and we respond very well to need and we help, you know. And for me, it's not enough. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep empowering others to do what I do instead of keeping it to myself. And I'm going to share those resources. I'm going to share my contacts. I'm going to share my knowledge and my experience and my expertise that I've garnered over the years. And I'm going to really empower other providers to do what I do, or to do the things that I've learned about. Because my thought is, you know, I could have, say at the moment, officially I've housed 100 people just because I capped it there because I was tired of counting them. Probably unofficially, it's probably, I wouldn't know actually. It directly housed, to say I physically, you know, housed this individual. It's probably at 150, 160 now.
That's amazing.
I think what my thought was, if I do that, I can maybe house another 150 people. If I work with 10 providers and teach them everything I know and link them up with all my contacts and give them all the tools that they need to make this work, then instead of housing 100 people, maybe I can house indirectly 1,000 people.
I get it. But I think you're
that's where we are.
I think you're talking about your social strategy group.
Yeah,
but before, sorry, Amy, but just before we start talking about that, we've got to talk about the House of Lords. Okay, I want to hear about that experience and so on, because I think that's, you know, it's the end of that sort of first element of the arc of your story. So
I've actually been to the House of Lords, spoken at the House of Lords twice now, which is got to be one of my proudest.
I'm sure.
My first time I spoke there, I was fresh out my council job, 2013. Again, a bit of a funny story attached to this one. I went on to a scheme called the Startup Loan Scheme with James Caan. It was a government scheme where they were pushing funds onto, you know, entrepreneurs to start businesses. And I was one of the very first people to get funded in that scheme. So they were looking at case studies and who they could use to get press and, you know, and to promote as part of their publicity campaign. So I tried to be cheeky one day and I rang their office and I said, I've had this amazing idea. James Caan is the face of, you know, James Caan, Dragon's Den.
Yep.
James Caan is the face of the Startup Loan Scheme. To get more publicity, why doesn't James personally mentor one of the loan recipients, and he could write about it in his newspaper column, and that would be amazing. And because I've come up with the idea, why don't you pick me? So
I love
they
it.
laughed their heads off and they said, we'd really love the idea. We're really thankful, you know, that you've got in touch with us. However, Mr. Caan is a very busy man, but we will pass this on to him, but we won't expect him to come back about it. So anyway, next thing, I got this, I think it was about a week later, I got an email pop up, James Caan.
Wow.
I was like, shut the front door. Somebody must have told him this.
Yeah.
In fact, they told me that they told him and he'd found it quite amusing.
Yeah.
So this is a good tip for anyone in business. Be cheeky, you know, don't be afraid to, like, again, the thing with breaking ground, New York, you've got to stand out a bit. You've got to push the boundaries a bit. You've got to be cheeky. As long as you're friendly, you know, people don't mind. As long as there's no malice behind it, and you're coming from the right place, then don't be afraid to be a bit cheeky and do things.
Kick those doors down. That's the that's the way to do it, isn't it?
You know, like I said, I didn't have any money to pay for a marketing campaign. I couldn't have adverts in my local paper like other letting agents, or you know. So for me, it was about being smart and doing what I could do. So, as I say, I was a bit cheeky. I got linked with James Caan. I got this email from James Caan, and he invited me down to a Women in Business event with Vince Cable. So I ended up going down and representing the company there, and I got touted by a journalist from the Sunday Express who ended up accidentally telling my life story too, and it all ended up in print. Off the back of that, they did an event for the Startup Loan Company, which was showcasing their what they were doing, and they were trying to raise more venture capitalist funding. So the first time I spoke there was they invited me to a dinner at the House of Lords and to represent the startup loan scheme and talk about what I was doing with my startup and have my vision and for you know, with homelessness and housing and all the rest of it. So that was really that was probably one of the best days of my life. There was 10 of the greatest entrepreneurs in the UK. So you have people like, he's just passed away sadly, like Tony Elliott, who was the founder of Time Out magazine. We had the guy who what's the black cab company in London, he owns the Addison Lee, the guy who owns Addison Lee, the founder of Coots Bank.
Oh wow, gosh.
Yeah, so there was like top entrepreneurs there, and it was a fantastic day. And then I was so blessed that when I published my report, my social media sponsor was at an event at Westminster Abbey, and with the Prime Minister there, and she was amazing to me in this respect. She chased the Prime Minister down, and she managed to actually speak to her, and she said, my friend's been to America researching homelessness, and she's got solutions, and it's going to change the world, and it's this and it's that. And Theresa May said, well, I'd love to read it. Well, tell her to bring it down. So lo and behold, we're going to Downing Street.
That's amazing. I love it.
So I took my report down to Downing Street, which was, again, one of the best days of my life. And then my second time at the House of Lords, when I published my report, I was invited by an organisation called Think House, which is a database of some of the best housing research in the UK. They added me for some reason because they liked my report because it had a personal touch to it. It wasn't your typical academia facts and figures. It actually, you know, it's written from the heart. It is my heart and soul in there. So they quite like the different tone to how I was writing. So they asked me to open their launch event at the House of Lords. So I got to speak there again, which was amazing. They always look after you really well when you go there, places like that. They just ply you with drink and you get drunk, and it's very
nice. Okay, so I mean, look, isn't that amazing? I mean, like you say, a couple of the best days ever.
Memories for life, honestly. I could die happy right now and think, you know what, I've done everything I wanted to do. I've chased all my dreams. I've gone after all the opportunities, and who knows what's coming next. But
well, there's the small matter of your social strategy group.
Yay!
Of which I know some of the people on the call today are already involved in it. So do you want to just give us a quick 5 minutes over what it is, what you're looking to achieve, and so on?
Yeah, so when we came back, as I say, my Churchill Fellowship report findings were that we needed barrier-free housing, we needed the right kind of support plugged into that, but then we also needed a medium which was going to help bring all of that together, because the private sector, the public and charitable sectors just work so differently, and it's very, very hard to gel them and have success without somebody like myself sitting right in the middle of that and doing everything and handling everything and mediating everything. So as I said, I wanted to bring my solutions now to a wider audience, and I wanted to scale, and I wanted to teach, and I wanted to empower. And for me, I it became evident that if I was going to do that, I needed to replace me from the middle of the situation. You know, I can keep housing people one by one as long as I'm in the middle doing everything. But how do we do this with me removed and make it a scalable business?
Mm-hmm.
So we came up with, you know, a long time ago, we've been going back 4 or 5 years. I mean, really, when I was doing my pilot scheme, we said, we need some kind of website, because I've got all these files and all this paperwork, and I've got all this, you know, stuff on this spreadsheet and this. We need some kind of website which my landlord can see and I can see, and we can document share. And we were using Google Drive, and we were using, you know, all these different platforms. And I really felt we needed something online that we could bring it together with. So the idea is yonks old, and we're still chipping away at it now, because it's not an easy one to crack this one. I wanted, as I say, to bring technology to life with what I was doing, and to replace me with some kind of tech solution. And I worked, as I say, if you look at my strategy report, my white paper, I'll post a link in the group when we're done if anyone wants to have a read of that.
Yeah, please do.
When we came to the end of that, all my kind of business plan is in there. So everything, you know, 10-year homelessness eradication plan, you know, all done with diagrams and everything, it's all in there. And we'd come up with a tech solution which was almost like an Uber for homelessness. So we had housing providers, we had support providers, and then we had all of the tools and education and training, and we had maybe like a way of accrediting people so they knew, you know, so that we could have confidence working with other providers. We had maybe like a rating and review system, so you know, but like a TripAdvisor element, so you could become educated, you could get all, you know, empowered and get the tools that you need, but you can also connect with the providers that you need to work with, and do that with confidence that you're all singing from the same hymn sheet, and you understand how each other works, and maybe you've got forms and documents that can guide you along the way, and contracts and stuff that you can use. So I started to want to put this together, and I went and pitched the idea to Andy Burnham at Greater Manchester Combined Authority about 2 years ago now. I think I was pregnant with Henry, and he's so probably about 2 years ago. And we actually got Andy got me a coach and a mentor and some people around me, and we had this amazing team of like people who are way above my stations, who were putting their energies into building this business plan and costing it all out. And we were looking at, like, you know, Silicon Valley building this bad boy, you know, something really phenomenal.
Yep.
We took it to Andy. Andy said, love the idea. We'd absolutely love to endorse it. However, for us, the sticking point is, if we go onto that site and we pick a property provider or a support provider or whoever it is, how do we know that that solution's not going to break down, or that provider's, you know, not bogus or going to run off with the money, or the tenant support's not going to break down? We need some more kind of reassurances that this is a protected way of working with vulnerable people. We can't just have a site with every Tom, Dick and Harry on there, you know, offering up their services. So we went back to the drawing board, and this is where we came up with, I actually got some more funding from the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust, which is amazing. I was one of only 7 people in the country to receive the award, which is an award which helps fellows now put their findings into practice and create practical projects. So I got some, I think I got £12,000 from them, which is over the course of the 12 months as we run the project. And that's helping me to digitalise my service, to create members areas, my website, and provide digital tools, training, tutorials. And what we're doing is we're just bringing a very, it's funny actually, it aligns so well with the Property for Good group, because as you're working with people who have an interest and who are coming in quite new and quite inexperienced and are learning the basics from your group, we're going up a level, and we're creating a bit of a closed community where it's a membership community. So I wanted to keep it a membership fee on there, so it's people are motivated to actually contribute, and they're, you know, it's not just people coasting who are there to watch and not take part. but I didn't want it to be restrictive and not allow people to take part and be, I don't want to be one of these £20,000 a year, mentoring guru type situations. So we put £100 a month membership fee on there for property providers, and what we're providing them with is, as I say, this closed community of innovation and collaboration. We're looking at how we can work together, so collaborate on schemes, do joint ventures. There's tutorials, there's webinars, there's site visits.
Are you still adding people to the community? So if someone is on the call or watching afterwards, is that something that they can talk to you about?
Yeah,
about
absolutely. Yeah, I've not done a mass promotion of it because we've added members, and I think we've got about 15 members we've been going for about 2 months now, and we've just found we've got a lovely community there, and people are working really well together. We've got a few, Shan, who I think is on the call, she's doing a phenomenal development, as you've mentioned, with her partner Andy, and Keith, and then so that we're following some of these projects all the way through. I'm doing some developments which we're following as case studies as well, so I didn't want to make it a massive free-for-all from day one, and we wanted to grow quite organically, and as I say, I'm not doing a huge mass promotion, but yes, we are community of like-minded souls. If you've watched today and think, yeah, I think I could work well with Amy. Yeah, I think, she's got something to offer me, and I've got something maybe I could offer the group, or, give me a ring and put some, thank you, Tara's just saying it's an amazing group with so much value. And this is we're not being too we're being quite flexible with the group. So for me, it's community led. It's an exploring group. It's almost going back to basics of my pilot scheme and going, okay, what are the procedures behind this? What's the best practice? What do you guys need when you're going out there, providing services or looking to provide services? What are your barriers? What are your challenges? What are the things that you're coming up against? And so we've been quite led by the community and quite flexible as we move forward. So one of the things we're working on this month which has been quite exciting. We did a session yesterday, I think it was the day before, on fee structuring. So one of the things that we found, and if you've been listening all the way through, you'll know that I had a terrible time making money in this sector for a good few years. I hemorrhaged money. And I've got members of my group who are the same as me, where they care so much about housing homeless people and making a difference that they're not commercially brained, and the money making side of things is not coming naturally to them. So thankfully I've got some experience in this now, so I'm teaching that to my team, and I'm telling them how you can monetize what you're doing, who can you charge fees to, how can you make add value along the way, and how can you quantify that value, and how do you package it up, and who do you charge, who do you pitch it to. There's no point working with Liz is saying £200 in 18 months. So I'm doing a one-to-one. Liz is in my group, and she's which I think she's quite happy to say she's not been able to monetize well what she's doing yet. I was exactly the same as this. So I'm going to work one-to-one with Liz on Monday and do a bit of we think we've got a couple of us actually that are doing that session, and we really want to make sure that people who are working within the group are doing okay, and they're able to pay their bills.
It's critical. It's critical because
they're never going to get anywhere.
So it's not sustainable. That's the point. Because you've got to put tea on the table, and ultimately it's you've got to have that blend of delivering the service and also being able to generate income. And it was a bit of a mindset change for me, because I've come from working in the private sector all my life, and then myself and Richard set up Cornerstone Place. He's got 12-13 years working in the social sector. And I was like, hang on, come on, we're trying to do something here to help people. Let's. And he said, no, we've got to be sustainable. We've got to keep the business going. And it's absolutely right. And it's perfectly reasonable. Everybody accepts that.
It is. There's a lot of money in this sector, and I've discovered that over the years. And I had a bit like you, a bit of a mental block where it was like I felt like I couldn't earn money because I was profiting off people's bad situation, if that made sense.
Sure.
And I had to change my mindset and go, no, I make my money out of ending that situation. I make my money out of changing.
You're creating value. You are creating value.
Adding value. So it's a crucial part of things. And say for me, I toyed for years, should I be a charity, should I be a social enterprise, should I be a limited company? And I probably did things the wrong way round, really, and I probably should have been a charity or a social enterprise in the early days, and I wasn't. I was operating as a limited company, so I had all of those obligations, but I wasn't making any money out of it, and I was acting in a charitable fashion. So as I say, experience buys you, it buys you the sense of being able to know how to operate better. And as I say, with my group, I'm hoping to empower my team so that they, are able to go out and operate in a sustainable fashion. There's no point in them working really hard for 6 months and going, you know what, I've earned no money and I can't do this anymore, and everything breaks down. So as I say, we're working on, one of the things I'm actually really excited about working on is proposals, which is what's coming next. So we're going to do a group-wide proposal kind of document. We're going to have an actual brochure that comes from our group. We're going to all kind of learn a bit of a pitch so that when we're going in to talk to councils and charities and registered providers and social landlords, that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, whilst we're selling our own services and our own business and operating independently. And my thought behind that is, as I've mentioned before, I've got, I can say officially I've housed 100 people and I've saved the government £2.5 million, because you can work out that saving
absolutely
goes towards your case when you're presenting. So what I want to do
and I'd say, sorry Amy, I'd say you can use that with investors as well. So if an investor is putting in £10,000, for example, into a project, that can equate to the taxpayer saving of X, whatever that is. So there are ways of building the message to everybody, all the stakeholders.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I forgot my what we were saying.
Sorry.
I do this 3 or 4 times in a session. I'm like, whoa, forgot where I am now.
Proposals.
Proposals, yes. So we're going to be, as I say, one of the things is, because there's so much noise in this sector at the moment, and everybody's knocking on RP doors, everybody's knocking on council doors, offering them something, and a lot of people aren't experienced enough or don't have the right credentials to be able to have those conversations, in a wider sense across the sector. And that's making this space very difficult to operate in for people like ourselves, who do have the experience and do have the resources and do have the credentials, but the councils are sick of hearing 20 calls a day of, we've got this, we've got this, or we'll offer you that. And so what I'm trying to do with my group is bring us together so we're singing from the same hymn sheet. And as I say, if I've housed 100 people and got £2.5 million worth of savings, if I've got 10 people in my group who all house 100 people and do 2.5 million worth of savings, suddenly we've got £25 million worth of savings and 1,000 people housed. So we're going to use that data and that evidence and those case studies as a team, and we're going to be, as I say, we're going to have a proposal and a presentation and a brochure, which is from, it'll have like some information about the group and what we're doing with the Churchill Trust and where this hopes to go, because what we're actually working towards with the Churchill Trust is a national database of policy advice for the government. So everything we're doing in our strategy group will build towards our eventually our website and our kind of Uber for homelessness. And it will also go towards looking at best practice for future address in times of crisis with things like COVID. So it's a fantastic project to be involved in whichever capacity you look at it. And I hope we do make some real impact.
I'm sure you will. I mean, look, Amy, before we even ever spoke, which was the first time a couple of months or so ago, I must have heard your name from people saying, you need to speak to Amy. You really should speak to Amy. From different sources, from within the GMCA, within the Combined Authority in Manchester and others as well. And I think, you've assembled some, I know a handful of the people in the team at the moment, and they're all doing great work. And you've clearly got the evident drive behind you, and that's been a consistent theme throughout your life to try and make stuff happen. So what's the best, if people want to get in touch, is it through your website, amyvarle.co.uk?
Yeah, a website, which is, I'm just having some work done at the moment actually, so should be finished within the next few days. But what I'll do is I'll post within the group, and when you share the video, whatever, I'll post my details under there. And what I'll probably do is, if anybody wants to send me any questions or any ideas for, if you've got topics that you're unsure about, or you'd like a tutorial on something, you'd like, you know, you go, okay, well, I want to get into this sector, but where do I actually start? Maybe Amy can tell me that. If it's something that's, you know, perhaps you're not at the advanced level of working in my group, I would be more than happy to come and offer my time on a regular basis to your community to answer those questions, to, you know, to walk through those types of tutorials, whatever I can do to support and guide and offer my experience. As I
That's
say,
amazing.
yeah,
That's amazing.
here. So we'll talk privately about that. But as I say,
Sure.
anybody that's here now, if they want to send to you or to me and we'll chat, I'm happy, as I say, to jump on and do this on a regular basis and just add as much value for people as I can.
Thank you very much, Amy. That's very generous of you.
Oh,
are there any questions from anybody at all? We've run over a little bit, but that's okay. Just go back to the screen. So yeah, not ordinarily now we'd have a bit of a Q&A session, but I think I can't see any, unless anybody's got any questions they want to add. No, I think we're good. The next event, the next session, the next webinar won't be until 11th of September. I'm off for a couple of weeks at the end of the month, and we're going to run these on the 2nd and 4th Friday of each month. And the guest is to be confirmed. I've got a couple of options, but we haven't sort of pinned anything down yet. But you know, certainly it'll be someone from within the sector who, and I'm trying to introduce, you know, different people from different backgrounds just to help give the group a nice wide experience and knowledge base from which to build from. So yeah, I think all that's left really is for me to say thank you to everybody who's attended, and for those watching on YouTube at a later date. And of course, thank you very much, Amy, for taking the time to come onto the call today. I really enjoyed chatting with you and hearing your story. And I think that's about it. So thank you very much, everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.